struggling a little bit because I went from that bitter, strong beer, and then this, and then I'm thinking, this is like water. Yeah, it'd be a little
combo.
right. Yeah, that would have been good. Yeah.
You're talking about beer?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's awesome because you know why?
Why?
It's Beer 30 Live.
No way.
Welcome, everybody.
It's the perfect topic.
I know. You're talking about this fruity kind of sissy beer we're drinking here.
Well, I switched from the really bitter beer to the sissy beer.
Yeah.
Now,
Why'd you do that?
Well, because the bitter one was just kind of leaving that bad aftertaste in my mouth. But now
Too
I'm
hot-
drinking
it was too
this and
hoppy.
thinking this is like water. So I think
It's
I
too
really
much?
made a mistake.
Really?
This? Yeah, it's like
I'm actually, I'm quite enjoying this. It feels more like a tonic.
yeah,
It's
it
nice
is.
for a hot summer day.
It is. It's a hot summer day beer. That's what it is.
It is.
What is it called? It's something.
Purple haze.
Purple haze.
It's like a Jimi Hendrix.
You know, salute to Jimi
Did you
Hendrix.
pick that up all by yourself?
I
there?
did. It was pretty good. Huh?
Do you think
pretty fast.
do you think that was intentional?
No.
You think it was just an accident?
Yeah,
Do you know
yeah,
what
yeah.
this beer should be called? Something really original.
How about
Purple fog.
Hey,
No, that doesn't do it.
Yeah.
Shut
Try
up,
this
late man.
again.
Purple fizz?
Yeah, I know.
No.
Purple fizz.
What the hell?
Yeah, I'm sorry I'm late. We're starting the show late because I'm the slacker, and I want to say for the record, I'm sorry I'm late because I totally thought it was going to be Jamie who forgot recording the first. This is the first
Okay.
time I think
We were
anybody
shocked.
Yeah, if
Totally
past
forgotten.
reputation is a measuring stick,
Yeah.
it probably should have been me. But in this case, I will have everybody know I was here first.
You were here
He was
first.
all alone, all by myself at the table,
And I
with
checked-
the adoring fans all around pressing in, and I had to
at other
handle
tables.
crowd control all by myself.
And I did, I did notice also by time-stamped voicemail, yours was the first to come into me.
Yes,
so
it was.
that's really,
like, help me out! I can't
yeah,
handle all
I
the,
can't
all
handle
the
the crowd. It's too much.
Yeah,
Too much.
it was.
The throngs.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm on my way here, and the phone rings, and I see that it's Jamie.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, are we having the show today? And my first thought was, do not tell me you have not left home yet.
I'm going to kill you.
Yeah. And he's like, no, I'm here. And I about fell out of my chair in the car.
Okay, my
Yeah.
reputation precedes me.
It does.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, that's
But
fantastic.
we're here now.
No,
three of us, and
we
it is
are.
Beer
We're here.
30.
We're drinking beer, and we want to talk about Mary's experimenting.
The big news.
It's a little late in life, I think, to
For the
start
week
experimenting, but
is
she's
Mary.
apparently doing it. Yeah.
I don't know if I'm the big news. Well, here's
Well, you are for us.
Do
tell
tell
us.
us.
Tell.
okay. So here's what for all week long, so far. So it's really, well, it's been about 5 days.
This is some sort of progressive hippie thing, right?
I
You're
have
doing?
not. Well, I'll explain why. But I have not listened to the news, listened to talk radio, read the internet, and I've been very, very limited in Facebook.
She's got the shakes. Have you noticed
And
that?
I'm just
I know.
anyway. But
Yeah.
It was because of the show last week. She blacked out.
Yeah.
so now it's been an interesting experiment because it's been very difficult, and it has revealed to me how much I may be a little obsessed with news and information.
Yeah, you're not. You're, I think, back on the unhealthy spectrum in terms of media consumption already. I mean,
yes.
Yeah, it's the J word, right? I mean, you do the junkie track.
Are you
right?
addicted to the internet? Do you think that's it?
No,
or
not
is it
the
news
internet.
in
Media.
general?
It's
just
news
the
media,
news
yeah.
in
Right.
general.
Right.
I see.
So, but here's why that I did it, which was, and this is why I wanted to bring up as a topic to see what you all thought, because
People, i.e., the two of
the
us.
two of you. But I did
Or my
it
mom,
because
she's a listener.
I'm getting worn down by all the negativity.
I hear you.
I was, like either ranging from thoroughly pissed off
Yeah.
to almost depressed in this whole spectrum of things. And so it was suggested to me by Phil that perhaps I should try something and see what happens when I don't expose myself to all of that.
When you detox.
Yes, all that negativity over and over again to see how I do this week. And actually, it's been interesting. I've done quite well.
So you would say mentally you're healthier.
A little bit, right? But I think it's just, and this is where I think there's a situation going on. I don't think I'm alone. So for instance, at work, we have a lot of people talking about, I don't know what's going on, but I'm worn out, I'm down, I'm just not real. There's been a lot of that, and so that was kind of my topic of the week, which is some of this stuff all starting to permeate and affect society and starting to bring everybody down because it's all a bunch of negativity, or on the healthcare side, the hatred, the swastikas, the hanging people in effigy and that kind of thing. And then you're hearing more and more stories of suicides and people going in and shooting up places. And anyway, and just wondering how much of that on us, when the media does that to us 24/7, how much that really affects our actual psyches.
Well, I think it's a great topic, and I think it's people have talked about it a lot over the years, in that sensationalism sells, and negative stories tend to sell, and the positive stories don't. But then we're fed all this negativity all the time, and it's garbage in, garbage out. I mean, we know that if you feed
like
your
my husband.
Well,
that's what he says about In Touch and Us
I like
magazine.
to think I'm a pretty intellectual, smart guy, just like your husband. So there you go.
Wow. All right.
I'm like Benjamin Franklin.
Right. I want
You are.
to know.
You're a self-described Benjamin Franklin.
I want to know where the glasses are.
Yeah.
At the end
So
of your nest.
I think it probably does have an impact on how we feel.
I buy it. I totally buy it. I mean, we just came off of 2 weeks of vacation, and even then, you find a little bit more balance when you actually pick up a book, that's
Right.
fiction, and can read it. But I'm interested I'm interested in the perception of the world around you when you turn off the media. Like one of the things I felt like I noticed is, one, all the news that I talked myself into really caring a lot about, nobody else knew, and they could not care less about the things that I was very passionate about.
Right.
Mark Ensign, philandering through the hills, right? You don't even know about that. No.
We're like,
No, well, see,
Okay.
this is
Details.
the senators who and their love lives.
There's another one?
Extramarital affairs. No, it's these ideas that nobody cares about that stuff as much as I told myself I needed to, and in fact, the world ends up being far more balanced than I think it is when I watch the news. When you watch the news and all you see is the town halls and the
unless
the
you watch
hate
Fox
speech.
News, because it's fair and balanced.
Right, fair and balanced, right.
Right. Yes.
And
they're total doomsday fear and
No,
despair.
I mean,
Always
I
do.
Is that the
actually
idea?
agree with you guys 100%. I think we consume way too much news and negative input, and it has an effect on our life and the way we see things
Right.
and our perception of what's going on around us. And it's one of the reasons, quite frankly, why I don't watch a lot of news. I mean, because it's count the news stories. How many of them are negative? And
Well,
the
they're all
vast
negative
majority
and they're
of
all
them
the same.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Just spun from a different angle. And the thing that it also makes you wonder is it a bigger deal when things are more stressful in general in your life? So,
Sure.
we're all sitting and everybody's feeling a pinch of an economy and issues there, and whether it's fear of losing the job and then fear of never finding one, or so it makes you wonder, does it make a bigger deal when all that stuff's going on? But if things were going well generally for all of us, would we be as impacted by all the negative stories? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, isn't that your experience so far? I mean, how long have you been doing it?
It's been 5
Thursday.
days.
5 days. So, are you generally in a better mood?
Yes.
And do you feel as impacted when people tell you the stupid stuff that's going on in the world?
Not as much. When I hear, like when someone else says, "Did you hear about this?" and I'll be like, "Oh, really?" But
But how important is
So
a lot
I
of that
think-
stuff in the overall scheme of things? I mean, a lot of the news items they really aren't that. I mean, who cares about Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie and
I
their
care
kids
very
or whatever?
deeply. I care very
Yeah,
deeply about
I mean, I certainly do on a
Brangelina.
superficial. Yeah, I'm sure you do. But
Uh-huh.
but really,
yeah.
why do we care?
Yeah,
I mean, what's the impact?
well, okay, and the third point is, do you find others reacting to you, relating to you differently, or do you relate to others
That's a
differently?
good question. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I can.
Because don't you find?
So.
I mean, that's it. When I watch the news and I get just hacked at what's going on in the world, I treat people differently.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, from that
Well, because you're
standpoint,
like
absolutely, I think.
angry
I'm
inside.
angry. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're
You're
not.
an angry middle-aged man in general.
White rage.
White rage.
I think it's
white rage.
Left,
more
right rage.
that my fuse became shorter.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that I was always walking through permanently ticked off and taking
Right.
it out on people, but yet the littlest thing would take me, from 0 to 60 in a very short period of time, and then it would be weird because intellectually in my head I'm like, why are you getting so?
Because you're stressed.
You don't even know.
Like,
You just can't control it.
Why are you? But at the same time, I would be having kind of this physiological reaction to it.
Right.
I do think though that economy-wise, and so I always drive everything back to money, right? I think the economy has had an impact on us as a society, and that people are stressed out about their jobs. If you don't have one, how am I going to get one? If you've got one, it is how do I keep it?
Yeah.
And I have to work doubly hard to make sure I'm doing the best that I can do, and that's put a lot of stress on people. And I think it's showed up in attitudes and perceptions and how we treat each other. And there feels like kind of this general malaise that's kind of gone. It's old Jimmy Carter malaise things from the 70s, kind of rebirthed again, just but without the cardigan sweater. It's very, very similar to that.
Yeah, I'll buy that.
Yeah.
So speaking of not watching the news,
Yes.
where do you draw the line? Is there in terms of other media?
Do you listen to the radio?
No,
You don't
I would
listen to the
not.
radio, but
No,
what about
Because I listen to a ton of talk radio, so
But
that's
right.
probably the very first thing I cut out.
Right. You cut out Rush Limbaugh.
TV at night?
Yeah,
How
Rush,
do you
yes.
how do you
I'm
pass
a
the
devout
time?
listener.
Michael Reagan. The Michael
Oh,
Reagan
definitely.
Show.
Mhm.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I especially like the screaming psychotic Glenn Beck.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You hear,
But
you know about him and his suspension, right?
he got suspended.
He got suspended for a couple days because after his you
Well,
were not on your
I
blackout.
knew he did lose a lot of advertising dollars.
39 advertisers dumped his show. Some
What
of
for?
them dumped Fox.
Altogether.
Yeah.
Wow.
What
And
for? I guess
because he did this stunt. Well, I mean, I think it's been building, but he did this stunt where, he was sitting there. He had one of his interns sitting on stage with him with a Nancy Pelosi mask, and he was reenacting how he could talk her into killing herself by drinking poisoned wine.
It's a little over the top.
Yeah.
Well,
wasn't he the one that was like, I'm thinking about how I could kill Michael Moore? And he said, he goes, I'm trying to decide, could I do it myself or would I have to hire somebody?
Well, here we are talking about him. That's the frustrating bit.
But don't you think really though losing the advertisers, whereas when he said that Barack Obama he hates white people.
Yeah, he's racist.
I think
Barack Obama's racist.
I think that was the trigger, and I don't know if it was the Nancy
all driven
Pelosi,
by
but
economics.
I
They
always thought-
happen a night apart from each other.
Oh, they did.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So who knows?
Wow, I'd never even heard about that. The Nancy Pelosi.
Oh yeah, there's
piece.
a clip of him, trying to.
Okay.
It's like a wine and dine kind
Well,
of a
I mean,
comedy
it's
act.
America. He should, if he wants to talk about that kind of stuff on the radio and do that kind of skit, congratulations.
Sure.
And if people don't want to support him and pull their money, that's their right too.
Yeah.
And congratulations, have fun. I mean, that's good for them to
So
express
probably
themselves.
don't you think the suspension though was probably just to make Fox look better to the rest of the
I
world?
suspect so. But although they're
Well,
hurt financially, so
yeah.
I mean,
Really, they
let's be
claim
honest.
they're not.
Well, you can't lose 39 sponsors. It's not like they had 39
yeah, you
others
said
that
that,
were
okay.
waiting in the wings because, I mean, so they lost money. So they're probably making a point for him. It's like, dude, you can do whatever you want in the show, but don't be a jackass and lose us sponsors. I mean, because
Right.
isn't that the bottom line?
What do you do when you don't have sponsors?
or don't be surprised when it happens. You
Yeah.
tool.
Yeah.
You can
True.
do whatever you want on your
You
show.
can, absolutely.
Until we lose sponsors.
Until
and
it
then
affects
you're not
the
gonna
bottom
be
line.
surprised.
Yeah.
That makes
Use your
sense.
best judgment, whatever you have.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Great. So where I'm headed next, though,
Yeah.
is I am coming back into the media world, but I'm going to be more conscientious of how much I'm allowing myself to be exposed to it,
Yeah.
and try to do a little bit more of a balance, and do more of, instead of watching the news, going out to the deck with a book that I enjoy
Yeah.
and doing a little bit more of that,
Yeah.
and so really trying just to counterbalance it more.
It's like anything else. Like when you start reading a book a little bit each day, you build a habit, and you find yourself wanting to do it. And you find that you don't miss the media stuff that much, I think. It's speaking of fear and loathing. Let's talk about swine flu.
Oh, yeah.
Anybody scared?
Oh, I'm freaked out.
Are you?
You're freaked out. Oh, God.
No. I was actually hoping that you could talk me down because of
Are
your
you
husband.
freaked out? Oh.
Because doesn't he have some wisdom? So your husband, tell everybody what he does.
Well, okay. Phil has a doctorate in evolutionary genetics, and he spent most of his research was on hantavirus. So I'm assuming this is where you're linking.
That's where
Okay.
I'm linking, yeah.
Okay.
Because I actually, in my head, H1N1 is equivalent to hantavirus. And I'm going to start bleeding out my eyeballs.
No, it's not.
That's true.
It's not.
That's what's going to happen.
No, and the thing that's a big difference. Well, the big difference is, I mean, hantavirus. It's not a human to human disease.
Yeah,
it's
hantavirus,
you have to have come in.
You bleed from every part of your body.
Well, if it's not,
die.
yes, if it's not caught in time, and that's the danger with it. Is it starts off and you just feel like you are sick with the flu or have a common cold. And by the time people get to the hospital, sometimes it's
melted.
too late. Yeah, it's gone
I mean,
too far.
swine flu, the
But-
death rate is really, really low.
Well, how many people die from the flu every year, anyways?
I don't know,
Isn't it
quite a
like
few. I
something
mean,
I'm gonna
but,
find out.
but they think it's going to be a lot more than that. So certainly, it's more dangerous than the common
Right.
flu. There is no doubt about that. But certainly, with the healthcare system in the United States, you're going to get better healthcare. We would hope for the average person than you would get in a third world country, and the death rate has got to be a lot lower. Now, having said that, am I going to go get inoculated when it comes out or whatever?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a dumbass.
I don't know. That scares me even more. They're saying,
Dude, your
and I'll
testes
tell you
aren't going
what.
to fall off.
Afraid.
Yeah, here you go.
Well, what's
so
okay,
this
go
is
ahead.
why. This is why because the from where is this from? I'll find out where it's from in a minute. Government health officials are mobilizing to launch a massive swine flu vaccination campaign this fall at unprecedented scope. The campaign aims to vaccinate at least half the country's population within months. Although more people have been inoculated against diseases such as smallpox and polio over a period of years, the United States has never tried to immunize so many so quickly. Among the unknowns, how many shots will people need, what the correct dosage should be, and how to avoid confusing people with an overlapping effort to combat the regular season flu. It seems like the two things you should know are how many shots you're going to need and how much the dosage should be.
So you're going to have, I'm sorry, you're going to get 2 separate flu shots?
If you are I've never been inoculated for the flu. I've never gotten a flu shot, and I've never needed it. The campaign here is haunted by memories of the government's ill-fated 1976 effort to vaccinate against swine flu,
Yeah, Richard
same
Nixon.
one.
Yeah.
The epidemic fizzled, but the
Really?
vaccine was given to 40 million people and blamed for causing a rare paralyzing disorder known as Guillain-Barré syndrome. Are you kidding me? I don't want to be on some test vaccination
You're not a
anymore. We're
crash
not
test
that
dummy.
good. You
No,
are.
We've come a lot.
We have not come that far.
We've
have
come a
not
lot further.
come that
I would
far.
sign up today, and you can shoot me in the arm, no questions asked.
I know you would do that. I
Well,
know that
I
you would
think-
do that.
But don't you think why it's kind of freaky is that, at least what they're saying right now, is that children seem to be fairly
Yeah.
okay against it, and so do the elderly. It's actually, isn't it something like 18 to 35?
Yeah, I don't know the numbers, but it's
something
it's
like
a
that,
weird
which seems
demographic.
odd, right?
Yeah,
You
it's
think it'd
not
be the
old
young
people.
and the old.
Right.
Wait a minute. I thought they said the young and the old are most.
No,
have the
not
most
with
trouble with it.
swine.
It's a weird. We'll have to find some info. and post
I'm
it on
looking
the
for it
website.
here.
Okay.
I mean,
That's
it
my
is a
thing.
I mean,
weird
I could be
demographic.
wrong.
That
but
article
that's
was
what
from the
I heard.
Washington Post that I was reading.
Oh well,
But
that's
I
a
do
liberal
know
rag.
there was
Oh, it's liberal rag. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
a
Yeah.
friend of a family member got it, and he got it so bad he was in the hospital. They had to do an induced coma for like a week.
Wow.
And he's like a 30-year-old guy.
My sister-in-law's husband got it, and was in the hospital for a couple of days. Yeah.
Okay. How many people get sick and die from the flu, regular flu, each year?
Yes.
40,000.
Okay.
I'm guessing.
Die?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Well, let me just tell you the facts.
Okay.
From the CDC, liberal rag, Center for Disease Control. It's estimated that on average, approximately 5 to 20% of U.S. residents get the flu. More than 200,000 persons are hospitalized for flu-related complications, and 36,000 Americans die each year on average from complications of the flu.
And they're talking something like 90,000 deaths
90,000 deaths they're predicting this
related
year.
to swine
Yeah.
flu this
In
year.
the U.S. They're
In the
predicting
U.S.
that.
Right. So a much bigger.
Wow.
Other nice thing, didn't know this. Did you know that the stomach flu is not the flu? Did you know that?
Really?
You mean when you
According
have
to
nausea?
CDC, many people use the term stomach flu to describe illnesses with nausea, vomiting, or diarrhea. These symptoms can be caused by many different viruses, bacteria, or even parasites. While vomiting, diarrhea, and being nauseous or sick to your stomach can sometimes be related to the flu more commonly in children than adults, these problems are rarely the main symptoms of influenza. The flu is a respiratory disease and not a stomach or intestinal disease.
Really? Isn't that
Totally
interesting?
didn't know that.
I didn't either.
Way to go,
One
CDC.
thing, when I had the flu last year, one of my,
You guys are talking about useless information in your brain that makes you depressed. Oh, Now I know that it may not really be the flu. Why I feel like shit. Okay.
Get scared.
Let's be all scared that I'm not supposed to take a shot because
Yeah.
I'm going to die from this shot. I'm not going to be part of the
Well, but
90,000.
hasn't that always
It's going to be
been-
the shot
but
that's going to kill me.
Can't
But
tell you
hasn't
how
that always
badly
been
I
the
want to be
myth,
on your
which
death
is
panel.
Why some people don't want flu shots, because there's always the theory that you get it. If
Yeah.
you get a flu shot, you will
Yeah.
get the flu.
Exactly. Are you the same
Yeah.
person who doesn't
I'm
let
that
your kid?
person.
You don't let your kids get that
No,
immunized
they don't.
either?
They don't get. Well, there are a couple that we do. The big dogs, polio,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the measles, mumps, and
measles,
rubella.
mumps, rubella, and I don't know what else.
You're not on the bandwagon
What's
with
the
Jim
one?
Carrey
What's the
and-
one where you had to go to Colorado and look at the sun with your mouth open?
What?
What?
Back in
Woodstock?
the 1800s, Woodstock
Oh.
was not in Colorado. It was the they give you a little booster, TB, tuberculosis.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. We have a whole. I grew up there, and we have a whole tuberculosis museum. There are these huts, and you'd have to, because it was so high and there's a lot of bright sun, and you'd have to go and open your mouth
To
to
try
the
to get
sun
over the
To get
TB.
over TB, yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
interesting.
wow.
All
Yeah.
right.
Big secret,
But-
they all died.
Sure they did.
I'll
Yeah,
take the
sure.
shot. I'm
Yeah.
doing the swine flu shot. If I come onto the show oinking like a pig, you'll know what happened.
It's not the oinking like a pig, it's the zombie thing that I'm most scared of. You're going to come to the show and you're going to want my brains.
You're gonna eat them.
Yeah. Well, I'd be sorely
Well-
disappointed. I have to go somewhere else.
I'm oh, wow. Did you
Whoa.
catch that? That was Jamie being a funny.
He made a funny.
This
But
is
no,
why people tune in.
So,
with the flu to the cold,
Right.
I once had a doctor, it was last year, and I'd never thought about it this way, but he said that, and you know when you have the flu, it's because just 1 minute you feel fine, and the next minute you just feel like boom, it's like being a shotgun to your chest, and you're like, you're exhausted, you're feeling horrible, all of that, where colds build, you know, like you might start to feel kind of
sore
bad, and then the
throat
next day a little
and-
worse, and then, so,
Right.
and I was like, wow, okay, that makes sense, and it's never been described to me that
Right.
way, to know maybe what's the difference between just a cold, a respiratory cold, versus flu.
So having a flu is like marriage, and a cold is like dating.
Okay.
You know,
Cold
you're
is like
married.
dating.
Yeah, well, no, you're kind of, marriage. You're kind of like, hey, this is pretty cool. Then you get married. Then reality sets in. Like, oh shit, what was I thinking?
So for
On the
what-
other hand, yeah,
I can't wait to go home and tell my wife I'm so glad I married her. It's just like I have the flu.
flu.
Yeah, and does your wife
Yeah.
listen to the show?
Yeah, I
Priceless.
think she's a friend of the show. Can we beat that out?
Priceless. Yeah.
Honey, I love you. I really do. Couch is okay.
I got another one, totally unrelated to the
Yes.
flu. You ready?
No.
And I'm really interested in both of you and your points on this specifically. And I'm pointing to Jamie and Mary. No one else is right here. Brain drain in the U.S.
Brain drain.
Yeah. Smart immigrants taking their U.S. educations and experience in building companies and creating technology back at their home countries. Xenophobia and the lack of any sensible H-1B visa policy is keeping the world's brightest minds from coming to the U.S. in the first place. Grad school admissions in the U.S. for would-be international students plummeted this year, according to the Council of Grad Schools, the first decline in 5 years. The decline was 3% on average, thanks to increases from China and the Middle East. Some countries saw double-digit declines in interest in a U.S. education. Applicants from India and South Korea fell 12% and 9% respectively, students turning their sights on schools in Asia and Europe as well.
Wow.
This is from an article by Sarah Lacey on TechCrunch. I don't usually really like Sarah Lacey, but this is a it's a good point. It's one that I think Bill Gates has been talking about for more than a decade. We've got to figure out how to solve this problem. And Mary is somebody who, in her real life runs a series of MBA programs, and Jamie's somebody who is a serial entrepreneur and educator. I'm interested in your thoughts on this. I mean, what sort of a problem is it? Good talk, everybody. Good talk.
It's an interesting topic. I mean, from my perspective and my program that I run, we don't have very many international students. Well, although we could, and one of the things that I've always heard from some folks that I know that live in France and the UK will talk about how a U.S. education is still very prestigious, but they can't afford to come to the U.S. to go to school. and that there's real opportunity for American schools to bring, through obviously online education, to bring that over there so they get to still go to a U.S. institution, but they don't have to move, they stay in their country, those kinds of things. So why is this changed? Does it have to do with traveling and visas? Does it have to do with the way they value our education? Does she?
Well, yeah, I mean,
go on to say?
she talks about that, and I think it's here's from a continuation of the article. Much of the world's economic growth, hence jobs, is in emerging markets. Schools are far cheaper and in many cases competitive academically. And then there's this H-1B issue. If America won't allow a PhD just trained in our top schools to work here and contribute to the economy, why come here and take on the student loans to begin with?
So this is more
This
tied
is a
maybe to
job
all
issue.
the anger over immigration? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big issue, I think, right now, that particularly was illuminated by the very big tech companies 10 years ago and is now really trickling down, that we're losing the smartest of the smart to other regions of the world.
Well, we also know, though, that in the areas of science and math, we're really down compared to a lot of other industrialized
Yeah, we've been down for a long
countries.
Yeah, but I mean, it also depends on how you measure it. We may be down in science and math, but in terms of measurements of creativity, the ability to think abstractly and those sorts of things, we tend to have a much better educational system. We don't do a lot of things by rote here, where a lot of other educational systems are by rote. So yeah, you can spout equations till you're blue in the face, but do you really know what they mean? I mean, I think that's what we really excel at. But I think there is a challenge in that education is not affordable in general, higher education for a lot of people. And so when we talk about the failures of our education system, for me, I look at it and I say K through 12 is not enough for the average person anymore unless you want to go to work at McDonald's.
Right.
I mean, if you want to be a knowledge worker in a knowledge economy, you've got to expand beyond that, which means we have to have an educational system that is affordable for people to be able to participate and get those advanced degrees so they can go out and earn a
But what do
earn
we
a real
do for the
living.
people
yeah,
that's not right for them? Because now that the manufacturing jobs are leaving the country, so where does a person who, not saying that they're not smart,
Right.
but a person who that's more of where their skills lies, and that's where they should focus.
That's an interesting question that I haven't thought about. What happens when you move from an economy that treasures producing things with your hands to producing things with your minds? And what happens to the people who are more gifted at producing things with their hands? I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah, I think we're talking about two different things. One is the sort of the where does blue collar work get done?
Right.
And I think in some respects, I saw there was a great TED Talk. The guy who's the host of Dirty Jobs,
Oh yeah.
Mike
he
Rowe.
did a what?
Mike Rowe. I
Mike
think.
Rowe, yeah, that's exactly right. He did this fantastic talk on TED about the real power and passion of the dirty job of the blue collar workforce and the honor and respect that comes from people who work with their hands, and it was really inspirational. It makes you want to just go out and shake a plumber's hand, because
Right.
I just ripped a pipe out of my wall. I don't know how to fix it.
Right.
Just last weekend.
There's
I'm
a
an
lot
idiot.
of satisfaction in doing stuff with your hands.
There really is.
There
There's
really
a
is.
lot of satisfaction in that, and to be able to honor that as an economic reality for a lot of
Right.
people. I don't think it's ever going to, I don't think we're ever going to be in a position where we have the discussion of it's a hardship to get work done, because there will always be idiots like me who have to pay somebody to fix my shower.
Right.
There will always
Right.
be that
Yeah.
problem. I think the bigger question is the fact that over the last 20 years, one in every 4 tech companies was started by an immigrant. 1 in 4
Wow.
was started by an immigrant. What do we do with that when we can't educate them and keep them here to start those companies?
Yeah.
Right.
Or the bigger question is maybe, does it matter? We're going to be working for them wherever we are.
I mean, the bigger question to me is why aren't those being started by Americans who are born here? I can't begrudge, quite frankly, anybody who wants to go back to their country and make a difference, because patriotism is alive and well no matter where you live. So if you're from a country in Africa and you want to come here and get a good education, don't you want to go back and make a difference for your family and your cousins and your home and your town? Sure you do. So I mean, I can't really begrudge them for that. But why aren't?
But what does the trend say? I don't think it's about why are these companies not started by Americans. I think the question is, why is it that we have immigration policy that doesn't support what this country was built on, right? Which is bringing in those who are of different backgrounds, and it's killing diversity in grad schools. It's killing diversity in the workplace.
Explain,
That's the
I don't
argument.
understand. Explain.
What? Diversity in grad schools?
Yeah. So
What don't you get about that?
So you're saying diversity in grad school?
If you can't get a visa, if you can't get a visa from out of the country, you end up in a grad school with a bunch of just
very
sane
homogeneous
people, right? It's
people,
homogeneous.
right, okay.
Don't we?
So you're driving
isn't
the
it
argument.
better? Isn't it better economically and globally to encourage that kind of diverse policy making?
I see where you're driving this. Absolutely, it is. I mean, don't you want as many people to participate as possible and to come in and get a good education and either then contribute here or go back to the countries or whatever? Absolutely. This idea of a immigration policy that really limits the number of people can come in. You gotta have to have some kind of limit, I'm sure, but puts some pretty artificial numbers on it, make it very
Canada?
difficult.
You talk
You don't
amongst
think so?
yourself. I need research.
You don't think you should limit the number of people to come into the country at all?
I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I haven't spent a lot of time
I'd
thinking
have
about
to
it, but at
really
some
sit
point
back
you
and
have
think
to
about
kind of manage it.
But
So-
I guess I'd say, how do you determine who gets in or who doesn't? So,
Yeah.
do we let lots of Asians because they're kind of white, and we don't let lots of others from
Right.
another because they're brown?
Yeah, I don't. You
I mean,
certainly
so I'm just,
don't want to do it
how
that
do
way.
you? In some ways,
that
I
is
guess,
the
how
risk.
do you do that? Yeah.
That is the risk.
But there's another thing, which is, well, are there? Even if you had all Americans who they wanted to go to college, they wanted to have the 4-year traditional education, meaning a lot less apprentices, a lot less of trade training, if you will. Do we even have enough spots?
Oh, but I think that's a problem
America,
that
meaning,
gets
do we
solved
have
over
enough-
time.
Right.
No, there's not. But I mean, it's supply and demand. If you increase demand, supply will go up. I mean, that's how economics work, right? So
Yes,
water
definitely.
will
More
always
people
find
want
level.
school, schools open up.
More schools open up. So I really don't see that
But
as a
isn't
problem.
there a limit with federal funding and financial aid? So then
Oh,
what do you do?
absolutely. I mean, it does come down to, the value of education in our country and how much we value it and how much do we invest in it as a country
See, I don't
versus
think
other priorities.
Right. And I don't think in many ways we actually truly value it.
Well,
as a
if you
country.
were to go by pay of K through 12 teachers, at the very least, you could say we don't value it
Right.
because those are some extremely hardworking people whose jobs never really end. It's not like they only work 9 months out of the year.
Right.
I think some people have the misconception, which is a good time to talk about it, I guess, is that a teacher will work 9 months out of the year and get paid for 12. And they say, well, they're not working for free. That's not really how it works. They only get paid for the 9 months. They just happen to spread out the income over 12. So it's not like they're just getting paid
a bunch
to
of-
sit on their
yes.
butt for 3 months. It doesn't work
Right.
that way.
And it's not even like I have multiple friends that are school teachers and several that are principals. It's not 3 months either.
Oh, no.
I mean, they get maybe 2 months tops before
Yeah,
they're,
exactly.
between the ending out the school year, shutting down their classrooms, doing all of that, then
Right.
coming back, getting ready, and then in between there, a lot of times in the summer, that's when they're expected to do continuing ed
Right.
work and those kinds of things.
Well, if summer's 8 weeks, or whatever it is, I mean, they're probably there at least a week after school gets out, and they're probably there at least 2 or 3 weeks
weeks. I
before
mean, there
school
aren't
gets
teachers
started.
back here
Teachers
already?
are already back working.
And
yeah.
we don't start till what?
The
September?
9th.
The 9th?
September 9th in
Okay.
my district. So they're at least 2.5, maybe 3
3 weeks
weeks.
back.
So of the 8 weeks, maybe 4 weeks of it, they're probably working. So what do they really get? 4 weeks off?
Right.
I mean, that's great. I mean, don't begrudge anybody for 4 weeks
Right.
off, but it's not like they're somehow getting paid to sit around for 3 months. So I
Exactly.
don't think we value education as we should. And maybe that's just my pet peeve is, being
As
an
a girl,
educator.
that's why I asked you, because I'm like, am I just biased?
No, I don't think so.
That's my area as well.
I don't
but
think so. I don't know that we answered your original questions.
You haven't. I'm researching.
So you can
There's a fantastic show on Current TV. They did an episode on Vancouver as the #1 immigration portal in the U.S. or in Canada, and they are actively and really progressively marketing Canada as the place to go, specifically British Columbia. And their argument is it's an economic one that says, you know what, you don't have to put those kinds of stringent limits, you don't have to put those kind of political limits, and in fact, the growth in the immigrant population grows the economy more than anything else. That's the argument, and they're proving it right. I just wish I could find the
On the
actual
face of
article.
it, I would believe it. I mean, I really would.
One of the things before I did go on my media ban was I heard a clip. It was, maybe one of you guys could Google it. He's a commentator on Fox News, and he basically says it was towards the end of the week. He goes, "Well, I think the moral of the stories of the week are basically that white people need to start procreating." And he goes on to talk about how Hispanics have lots of babies, and by this year they will be the dominant population in this country.
Oh, good Lord.
And that, and it was all with the doomsday message, right? Be very afraid of the brown man.
Yeah.
And then, said, so get busy, white people, start making babies.
Yeah, that class warfare just pisses me off. Man, I think
That's the Lou Dobbs theory of America,
Well, I think
It's
one of the
disgusting.
things that has changed, though, one of my pet peeves of what America is becoming is that we aren't necessarily the melting pot that we used to be. We are a subsection of these classes that kind of compete against each other. And it's I know, again, I wasn't around during the immigration of the 20s and stuff, but it would seem to me
Really?
that, yeah, believe it or not, that the way you want to do it is you want people to come in and everybody kind of together become this new society, right? And whatever that new American society turns out to be, based upon the input of this group that's constantly growing and changing. And I think sometimes what's happening in the fact that people are coming in our desire to respect everybody's heritage and stuff, we then fragment ourselves.
Yes.
And we don't become a melting pot anymore. So then we become, I am this and I am this, and I need to really hold true to that. And I wish people would look at it and say, I'm coming in and I'm going to become an American, whatever that means, whatever it turns out to be. And that's a whole new culture in and amongst itself. And I think this whole separation is really not very healthy for us. And I think that's where we get, we need to have more babies so we can be represented.
We got to keep being the dominant race, right?
It's like, come on, no. We're just a race of people together. We're not this, and it's not a competition to have more of this versus more of this.
Right.
And I think that's where we go off the tracks.
I agree, and if you are an immigrant here and you hear on the news, white people start making more babies so we continue to dominate.
You know what that
then
makes you want to do?
leave?
Have more babies.
Well,
Because now it's a race.
Well, it is a race and it's a competition, and it shouldn't really be. Societies are this ever-changing group of people, and you should just kind of adjust and say, this is America. It's one of the reasons why I struggle with labels when we say, well, I'm Mexican American, or I'm African American. It's like, you're just an American, I mean, you're just, we don't need to label
Well, I don't
and
have a
fight.
problem with that, because that's wanting to sit and stick to your heritage.
And I understand that, but what I don't want to do is then become warfare based upon
I agree.
these different classes of people that will this class this and this class that, and I don't think that's healthy for us.
That's true. That's true. Well, if you think our grandparents and great-grandparents' generation, that was all. I mean, I always remember with my grandfather, he'd meet somebody and say your last name and then say Scotch-Irish, right? Or German, right? I mean, they were so much more aware of people's heritage and culture than I think we are today.
That's probably true.
But yet it wasn't done in a negative, like, oh, you're Scotch-Irish, I don't like you.
Right.
There was we recognize that we're different.
Right.
And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that.
But we're all the same in the end, right? We all want the same thing.
Right, but then I think political correctness swung the pendulum too
Exactly.
far, which was now we're all going to pretend that we're not different,
Right.
that we're all the same. And we're not all
We're
the
not
same.
all the same.
And that we should be, celebrating diversity is acknowledging diversity and saying it's a good thing. Celebrating diversity is not pretending that diversity doesn't exist. And I think that because of that political correctness, the pendulum has swung so far.
I agree.
That people are afraid to acknowledge the differences because then they're afraid of maybe being called, you're a racist, you're this, you're that.
Right.
I don't know. But in the workplace you see it, right? Which is, I'm just the same as Jamie. I perform just the same as Jamie, so therefore I should be the same level as Jamie, or I should be promoted to the same level. And managers are challenged with that, which is, actually you're not at the same level of this person. And you do perform at a different level, and therefore that's why you're not getting promoted.
But then people fall back on, you're not promoting me because I am this class, right? So you fall back to the easy argument, which is you're not promoting me because I don't think like you, or I'm a woman, or I'm this, or I'm a minority, I'm a middle-aged white male, quite frankly. I'm in the minority, right? So therefore you're discriminated against me. That's a really easy argument to make, but it's really a lazy argument, in a lot of respects.
Well, it's an easy argument to make, and it's unfortunate that it's an easy argument to make that has been for so long padded by regulation, right? I mean, I'm not an expert on equal opportunity, right? I'm not an expert in it.
I'm not either.
But the arguments against it seem so, on both sides of it, seems so radical and kind of. I just feel like as a centrist, there's got to be a happy medium based on performance. Mm-hmm. Man, this has gotten way out of hand. This conversation.
That's okay.
We were talking about Canada and swine flu.
And then here we are.
Well, then you went with
Well,
immigration.
I did.
And speaking of somebody who is a centrist, what about poor Ted Kennedy? Yeah. You saw the news, Mary? Did you see the news?
I did not see that, but
No,
I did
get
hear
the word?
as soon
He
as I
passed
walked in
away.
the
You
office one
osmosed
day.
it.
Yeah.
Which I'm not surprised when I heard that he didn't even go to be by the bedside of his sister or
Yeah.
even to her funeral. You
Yeah,
knew that
he's been
things
sick.
weren't good.
Brain tumor,
Yeah.
that's got to be a tough one.
Yeah.
So what's really interesting is a person that I work with who was of that generation, and that was a hard day for her because that was it. That whole
End of Camelot, right?
Uh-huh.
The whole Kennedy.
Yeah, it was. It was when I saw the picture. There's this picture that's been circulating of the three of them together, the brothers in the '60s. That were. It's just really powerful.
And since we
Just to
lost John
see it,
Jr., which was 10 years ago now
Yeah.
or something. So, if he were still around, it might be a slightly different story. But since he's not, and everybody, of course, thought he would go on eventually
Right.
and probably at least be a politician, whether he'd run for president. But
To me, it's just the end of the era that's a sad part. I mean,
It
Ted
is
Kennedy.
to a lot. It's the end of this is the death of Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's now a mythical
Exactly.
creature.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
don't look at it.
necessarily look at it that way, but
So has there
that's
been
what
any-
it feels like in the media.
yeah.
Well, there is a little bit of fawning and nostalgia that always happens.
So what I want to know is, did conservatives celebrate? They've always hated.
Well, you
that
heard what
guy.
McCain said, right?
No.
Who was it? Who was it? It was McCain was on the finance committee about healthcare, and he said, if Ted Kennedy had been there, we would have really been able to have a dialogue. So, okay, blame it on the guy's brain tumor if we don't get health care, because
So now
Kennedy
it's
wasn't
Ted
there.
Kennedy's fault.
It's his fault.
Well, yeah, meaning that most Democrats aren't nearly as don't listen and talk articulately as Kennedy. I don't know. I mean, it's certainly the end of an era. I think Kennedy had a great reputation for kind of being able to work both sides.
And healthcare was his
healthcare
issue.
was his baby, so it certainly is a loss. It's not for me Obi-Wan Kenobi or anything like that. But it is a loss, the end of an era, and that's kind of sad, for everybody.
Yeah.
And you wish his family well. Was he married?
Yes, he was married.
Yeah. Okay, I didn't know that.
I'm pretty sure.
Well,
the only reason
you
I
know
say that
what?
is wasn't it his wife that walked? There was something where maybe he was at the Democratic National Convention, and he made that surprise. But it might have been a daughter with. I'm not sure.
I'm
But there
not
was
sure.
a woman with him, and I thought it was his wife.
Yeah, Virginia.
Yeah, he is married. All right.
But any news? What happens now with his seat?
I don't know.
That'll be a good question.
I
The
don't
governor
know.
appoint? Would
Well,
that
it seems
be?
like that's what we've had
That's
happen
what
in
happened
recent
with
history,
Clinton
right?
when Hillary moved over to Secretary of State.
Yeah.
Didn't they appoint?
is Hillary Secretary of State? I didn't know. Well,
Oh, you are joking.
no, I'm serious. It's like she is the weakest Secretary of State we have had in a lot of presidencies. So,
You want to do this now at 50 minutes in? You want to do this?
We're not going there.
Seriously?
Okay.
With her at the
All
table?
right, I'll
Have you
stop.
seen some of the clips of where she has gotten tough?
Have you seen where she's gotten a little feisty with the fact that she hasn't really been hardly on any road trips and her husband's usurping
Any
her?
road trip? She's been all over the
never
world
been
already.
here.
All right, we can do this next week.
Okay, we're doing it
can
next
do
week.
this
I'm
next
doing some
week.
research for next
You haven't
week.
seen where she's been all kind of pissy about the fact I'm Secretary of State,
No, I
not
saw
my
when-
husband.
Well, no, when
and,
they
you
said, I want to know what your husband thinks.
Yeah.
And I did
Yeah.
see that. And
I mean, there
thought,
have been a lot of
I thought
articles
a little bit of
out
good for her.
that she's a pretty weak Secretary of State, and I just wonder from a political point of view if
Well, I
Obama
guess
has
I'd
done
want to
that
know
on purpose or what.
what's the criteria to judge whether a Secretary of State's good or not. I mean, what is
Yeah,
it?
that's a good question. Yeah, I guess I want somebody to play point on international affairs.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you
So
this.
doing
You're going to
great.
lose this
Thanks.
argument next
I'm
week.
going to lose this argument.
You're going to lose this.
Okay.
I'm going to put money
All
on
right.
that right now. You're
All
going
right.
to lose this.
Okay.
And you're going to go home whimpering, and Mary's going to go home with a crown.
She just does not seem
Yeah.
to be playing
It's just
point.
because she's a
Just
woman.
not-
No, okay.
it's not
It's
gonna.
not 'cause
It's not
she's
gonna
a
be pretty.
woman.
It's gonna be one of the
I just
ugliest
did that to bring up
bloodbaths.
because of our previous conversation
Yeah,
of where people
we-
want to blame it on labels.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We still don't know if that runner though from South Africa is truly a woman. So
That's
the
true.
jury
We-
is still
we
out on
don't.
that.
It is?
Yeah, no,
Well,
it's
now
okay.
I
I don't
thought they
know.
were doing some testing.
They are, but they said it'll take a few weeks, so we don't know yet.
Interesting.
All right.
You know what my guess
I'm
is?
waiting for the
I'm
sex tape to
guessing
come out.
that he is both.
I'm thinking so too, and that
That's
it's
what I'm
ambiguous,
guessing.
and they'll have to rule as a body which way she leans physically
Right.
the most.
Right.
I think it'll be ambiguous.
And then what if she truly is 100% a woman? What does that now say about sports moving forward? Should men's sports be
Segregated, or should they all be
segregated
the
or
same?
not? I don't know.
As long as we can dope, I think it's all right.
Bring on the
But
dope.
it
Bring
does.
on, as long as the playing field is completely even.
Speaking of
so to
dope, have you
speak.
seen the news? Mexico has legalized small amounts of
Yes.
drugs.
Yes.
Marijuana,
Of all drugs?
cocaine. Well, I don't know all, but certainly they've got their list of 5 or 6 that anything short of like marijuana, a couple of grams or something is fine. I know.
So an American won't end up in a
well, you know,
Mexico
the question.
jail for a long period of time
Yeah.
for that.
In related
Yeah.
news,
So the
all
question-
college freshmen completely closed the border in Mexico trying to get in.
Yeah.
You go to school in Texas or Arizona or
That's right.
California, you're on your way.
Maybe
Or Arizona.
Mexico will just open up these brand new universities, right? That are
Right on the
extension-
border.
Right on the border. Yeah. it just
Little
really
Nogales, Arizona.
brings up a question: is that where we're headed in the United States? And America has been really quiet in their response. It's not like they've said, "Oh no, this isn't good," blah blah blah. They've pretty much been hands off on the whole thing. So next
think it's
week's
'cause-
episode
yeah.
actually
Yes,
will be
we've
from
got-
Tijuana. Believe it or not.
What are you talking about? We live in Oregon.
Well,
We don't
that's
have to
true.
worry about
That's
it
a
too
good
much
point.
up there.
Right, right.
Do we?
No,
Right?
not-
Don't we have the
Listen,
same
Mary,
rights?
I don't know if we have to
Well,
worry
no,
about it.
for the
I know
others,
I
but-
don't.
Certainly the police forces here are pretty lax, from what I understand.
Well, it's just a ticket up to a certain
Yeah,
point.
it's just a ticket. But in Mexico now, it's not even a ticket. They just say, hey, you shouldn't be doing that, and there's a rehab center down the street. They won't even do anything. I mean, they just let you go. So it's interesting
If
to
they're
note.
not doing it with you at the time.
Yeah. Well, I understand.
And by the way, let me have you.
Part
I
of
don't
the
know if
issue
that's
had been
true.
before was they would extort you for a bribe to not ticket you or something. So now they
Okay,
kind of, the
yes.
goal is
Yeah.
to try and get rid of that, right? So it'll be interesting to see how that goes and what the response is in the United States, and is that where we're headed as an economy or as a country? And I suspect we probably are, but that's a whole different debate.
Legalize it and then tax the hell
Hell
out of
Oh,
it.
absolutely.
I had an
That's the
econ
hell of it.
professor in undergrad. That was his answer to a
Yeah.
lot of America's
Yeah.
issues was to legalize marijuana and tax it. So
Yeah.
like cigarettes. And
Because it's all about the economy.
That's right.
Everybody votes for their pocketbook, so they'll make decisions that way.
And on that note, find us at beer30live.com, which takes you right to our Facebook page, which is chock full of awesome. And you can listen to the latest show. You can go subscribe to the show in iTunes. Just search for us in iTunes, Beer 30 Live. And on behalf of, or in place of, or just I just showed up today, and I'm honored to be able to be sitting here at the table with Jamie and Mary
Thank you.
This has been Beer 30 Live.
We're out.